right, how is everyone doing today, tonight, whatever time it is that you're watching this video? It's nighttime for me right now. I just got out of DreamClouds and P.E.Y.T Investments Money Management Seminar. We had our special guest, Fred Chatman, so a financial advisor, investor, and educator here with us tonight. And I mean, it was absolutely amazing. A free Zoom event that we had, really just breaking down, like, the I want to say basics, but it's not always basics. The important knowledge of investing and saving your money, managing your money, and the different types of savings accounts you should have, and how to get started on saving your money and investing into your future. And then more importantly, we had Michelle and I just giving all those different resources and tools, different habits to look into. We had one event where we talked about our atomic habits to grand goals. Today we were relaying those atomic habits into our finances so we can reach our financial goals. And so with that being said, I just wanted to come here today, tonight, whatever the case may be, give you guys a little bit of the repeat if you missed the event. If you were there at the event, then just to reiterate some things for you guys in case you missed any notes, because we definitely want to make sure that, as I said in the call, 2021 is our year that we are not just putting our goals out there, but we're getting them done. We're accomplishing our goals. We're excelling on them, And who doesn't have financial goals set in place for us, right? More importantly, who isn't trying to make sure that they are prepared for their future, financially prepared? We are going and striving towards financial freedom, and we have to start somewhere, right? And so, as I mentioned, even just with the call that we had, and Fred was able to break down a big chunk of investing, and the different types of savings accounts you should have, and the different types of, our 3Ds of investments, as we like to say, things like that. And, I'm not going to go even deep into detail into those things, but really just breaking it down into, after you've considered where you should be investing your money into and knowing the importance of their money. The first question is, how do I get started? Where can I start, right? What do I do to make sure that I'm not overspending anymore? What can I do to make sure that I'm putting money into my savings account? Is savings the right account for me, right? Maybe I want a faster growing interest rate. So can I look into something else? These are the types of things that I'm hoping after today's video, you have a better understanding and a clearer vision on what to do with your money. And so first thing first, like I said, how do you get started? It's all about the discipline. That is the first thing I'm always going to be mentioning to people. It is hard to save money. We know that. Some of us, spending money is like our weakness, retail therapy. And I tell people, overeating for myself, money, we say it's the root of all evil because it's just so, I don't know how to say it. It literally feels like it's your route to joy. And that's the scary part. And so this is why we're talking about this, because sometimes, we get out of hand when it comes to our money, out of hand when it comes to our finances. And we're not thinking about what can happen to the money in our worst case scenarios. Oftentimes we always say people are talking about making money, but we now need to start shifting our conversations into how to manage our money and what to do with it in our future, right? So as mentioned, it starts with the discipline. It's all about the discipline. You want to know how to become a better spender? We're going to have to go through your habits, and we can identify what needs to be more disciplined, right? And so the first thing first is reviewing and analyzing your spending habits for areas of improvement. That's what I was getting into is, some of us retail therapy. Maybe some of us spend money out of emotions. I myself loving food and just like I like to eat out. And I will not find many reasons to not spend my money on food. I mean, it's food, right? And so it's really going through what you spend your money on, not just this past week, these past couple of days, or just even this past month, going back a couple of months and saying like, okay, you know what? I spend this much on bills a month, and I spend this much on gas a month, and this much on groceries a month, breaking all these things down so that you can be able to find those holes, as we'll get into a little deeper into the conversation, but those holes where you see yourself taking the money that you shouldn't be spending and allowing it to go there. And more importantly, maybe the holes of where you're not putting your money into enough of. So this thing is going to be noticed in, as I say, for people who are maybe cash spenders, holding on to your receipts. That's one thing that I want to say. Keep your receipts. We'll get into more reasons why it's important to keep your receipts later. But for now, when it comes down to analyzing and reviewing your spending habits as a cash person, keep your receipts to make sure you have record. And for someone who is an online shopper and someone who likes to swipe their cards a lot, then of course, bank statements. This is what the bank statements are for. It's actually very much perfect because, there's a reason why they're sending you your bank statement every month, whether it's in the mail or they're making sure it's drawn to your attention online, because they want you to see how your money is moving. The incoming and outgoing process of your finances on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis. These are some things that you want to check. And as I said, as you're going through them, you're looking for your areas of improvement. So then more importantly, after you're going through that, you want to figure out what works for you. And so today in our money management seminar, we were able to touch upon multiple different types of resources and tools that are here to help people, mitigate the risk in their finances, and also really see the largest growth in their finances. And so with that being said, everybody is different, and that's why it's so important that we have to go through so many different methods. I'll say for myself, I'm much a notebook, journal, planner, and writing it down type of person. I want to be able to take a pen, see it on paper, and erase it and move it if I need to, whatever the case may be. Where many of us are not really focused on having to carry so many notebooks and planners with them, and they much rather prefer that everything be done from their phone. And so this is like where it comes into figure out what works best for you. Maybe it's not just writing down or having that visual sight of your finances that are helping you, but actually what kind of habits do you need to change that work for you to be able to force your discipline a little more and taking the money out that you need to take it out of and putting it into where it needs to be put. So that gets us into our next point of planning it out and budgeting. So as I said, for people who are big on writing it down, we're writing it down for a reason. We want to make sure that we're making it clear, we're very descriptive in where our money is going and what happens, what we're doing with our finances. For one, this is helping us because we're preparing for, I want to say, future circumstances that were unpredicted. That happens all the time, right? We have these unpredictable circumstances that came into place. And I think financial circumstances like that can be one of the worst because you never want to be in a situation where you've already allocated your money to something and now that can't be done because you now have to shift it towards something else. These are the types of things that when you plan first and budget with your plan, you're allowing yourself some extra money, some extra wiggle room, or even just, a little bit of the stress relief that comes with a lot of this financial burden, as we like to say, right? By having it all written out and planned out for yourself. So knowing what bills are going to be happening on which day within the month, this is great for times like vacationing so that you're going to be spending a little more extra within that month, and what kind of payments are going back to back to back, because sometimes it can feel like we don't get breathers between our bills and the groceries and the gas and everything we have to spend money on. But realistically, if you're able to look back a couple of months on what you usually spend money on and how much you're usually spending, you're able to take that data, that information, and apply it to your future budgeting, your future habits, your future finances, your future plans, right? So that is getting into planning it out and budgeting. And then lastly, again, I also mentioned keeping receipts. Yes, of course, for my cash spenders who want to go back and review and analyze their spending habits, but also just, this gets into when we want to transfer our personal habits once again into something that's going to turn out well for us professionally. There's so many of us who are getting into starting businesses. We're being entrepreneurs, right? And we have to work on some things personally in ourselves before we can bring it to the business. And what better way to start than with our finances, budgeting, right? And so when you're keeping receipts, you're keeping your proof, your records of spending, expenses, liabilities, for yourself, that you can use to budget for yourself. And then you take these techniques and these tactics, and you apply it to your business. You apply it to a professional manner so that, once again, you're not too completely thrown off about what it is that you have to do. I'm working off slides here today, so we're going to go to the next slide because, like I said, this is coming from our presentation today, so I'm just giving you guys the quick skim of it all, right? And so, how can you change your spending habits? Like, everybody's like, it's about the habits, right? But habits, changing your habits, they take time, as we know. And because, it's so instinctual in us, it's so automatic because it isn't habit, we first have to get into this idea of just, how long is it going to take, and where do I start? What are some of the things that we're going to be looking at? And that goes back into saying finding areas of improvement. So as I mentioned, where can you start to find your areas of improvement? Well, for one, you ask yourself, what are you overspending on? I said it for myself, one of them being I like to eat out. And so I've started to see that as an area of improvement because can I eat out less? Absolutely. It's really one on that discipline method, like we said. So can I discipline myself to stop eating out so much? More importantly, how much am I overspending on eating out? I get this number because I've looked over my previous spending records, my bank statements and my receipts, and taking this number and saying, like, I can definitely minimize and dwindle this down, this eating out number, from this much to this much, and spend, only this much a month on eating out compared to this. So I'm just going to go ahead and break it down as far as an example. So let's say I'm spending about $200. That's probably easy on eating out, honestly. I should really relax. But let's say I'm spending about $200 a month, right, on eating out. And with that being said, it's like I'm doing lunch breaks and I'm doing dinners and I'm doing breakfast and coffee and all these other things. I'm like, I'll just spend it, right? Because I like it and I enjoy it. Now I'm overspending on eating out at the end of the month. I go in my bank statements and I'm looking that over, and it's like, okay, what can I do to change my spending habits? How can I make this an area of improvement? Well, for one, the first step, maybe can I spend $50, $100 less on eating out? If that's the case, working on how we're able to take that money out, making sure that it's just Saturdays I'm going to cook, instead of eating out or whatever the case may be. You realize that there's an opportunity for you to be able to save another $50 to $100 by just eating out a couple times less within the month. This right here is your first step in saying, okay, I see that there is money that can be saved. Then you also want to say, what debt do you have? So something that we've talked about in our money management seminar today is this concept called debt stacking, right? The debt stacking concept. And what that is really listing your debt under your name for yourself, from lowest to highest. Most people come in with a mentality sometimes of when they see how much money they owe, the debt they have, whether it's school loans and car notes and, credit cards and everything else, they're thrown off. They're afraid. They get shut down because they're just like, oh, I'll be paying these things forever. They don't know what to do, right? But this is something that debt stacking can help you do. When you begin to just write down the list of debt that you have, one, you're helping yourself because you are setting out a goal. You want to pay that off, and you're letting yourself know, like, this is the number that I have. It helps you to manage it, keep track of it, because one thing we know with interest rates, it can feel like you're never paying something off when you've been paying it off for years. And that's how interest will get you. You're paying things off, and you're paying off the minimal balance. But by the time interest is hitting you, it's bringing you right back to your starting point. So this is something that we want to work on because it says that when you're listing your debt from smallest to largest, and you paying it off that way, it gives you that sense of belief and hope to let you know that you can do it. When you start to see the smallest piece of debt that you have and you're paying small payments on it, it goes down and eventually you're able to pay it in full and you've knocked it on the list. You then get to see, like, oh my gosh, my credit's getting better. Oh my gosh, my debt is going down. And you know what? Because I've been working on my spending habits and because I've been saving better and I've paid off one piece of debt, I can now start putting more money into paying off this next thing. So that's something that you want to say is another area of improvement, because Although debt sounds like it's a weakness and it is a burden on your hand, depending on how you look at it and depending on how you're putting your money aside to pay it off, look at this being an opportunity to build your credit, as long as you making sure that you are managing your money correctly, in the right way, right? So of course, moving from that, then that's when you also just want to think about, on average, how much money do you have incoming and outgoing. Oftentimes I like to say within the month, just giving a general basis. I say that because for myself, I've gone through a couple of different spending schedules, I would say, or paycheck schedules, as far as just weekly paychecks, bi-weekly paychecks, monthly paychecks. And so I think that at least, there are certain things that are going to repeat only once within the month, and come back though every month. So you at least want to be able to do a good 30-day, 4-week period of what your money is looking like, incoming and outgoing on average. This is going back to being able to, one, find areas of improvement where those loopholes, because if you see how much money on average you have coming in and how much money on average you're spending, you're kind of prepared for the months ahead of saying, like, you know what, it doesn't matter that I have to spend this much this month, or I have to do this month, because I know I'm expecting at least this much amount of money to come in, whether that's being from paychecks or other allowances that you're getting, or whatever the case may be. And even when it's outgoing, you want to know on average when it comes to gas. We don't want to just swipe every month, and some months we're spending more on gas than other. Yes, guaranteed. And some months we're spending more on groceries than others. Yes, guaranteed. But when you take all this information and pull it together, you can at least say, like, I spend about $125 on gas a month. And now this way, in the beginning of the month, you've already put $125 aside. Things like that, where groceries, maybe this month you don't need $200 for groceries, but you've budgeted for $200 of groceries because that's what you've seen on average you were spending. And so now maybe it's only cost you $120. You officially have an extra $80 that is in your pocket that can go to so many other things that we're going to get into, like beneficial things such as stocks and bonds and RAs. But then more importantly, maybe it's just something fun, and you've decided that you've planned out all your expenses, all your finances, and now you can have some extra money to put into eating out if that's something you had to cut out. Now you get an extra day to treat yourself, right? So these are the types of things that you want to look at and spend your spending habits. Where can you improve? And then from there, once you've noticed where the holes are and where the gaps are and things that you want to plug in, you start to actually move on it with the action. So one big action that I like to say when it comes to saving, that I like to use: if you do not see it, you will not spend it. That's so large, and there's so many different ways that you can even go about not having to see your money so that you don't spend it. One thing that I always like to say, especially for those who are receiving their checks in direct deposit form, something that I do in my different savings accounts, because that's something we've also talked about in today's seminar, the different types of savings that there are: long-term savings, short-term savings, really retirement savings, things like that essence. And so for myself, when I have my paychecks coming to me direct deposit, I'm making sure that money is hitting my savings accounts before I even look at my checking account and know how much I got paid. I have my retirement fund with a certain percentage going there. I have my emergency savings, which is I use as a short-term savings account, something that I can touch if needed. And then I have my do not touch savings, which is my long-term savings account. And then I also even have my Roth IRA portfolio. And so there are 4 different savings accounts, some short-term, some long-term, and each one of these have money going directly to the account without me even noticing that it's coming out of my paycheck. When I get paid, before the remainder of my paycheck is coming to me, after my money has already hit these different savings accounts. So this already lets me know, it gives me that secure feeling of saying that I've done what I needed to do this month, and making sure that I funded up my future. I funded up my savings. I've invested into whatever it is that I'm going to need eventually later on. And I feel that if the case came and if I needed some money, if unpredictable circumstances came around, I know that there's somewhere I'm safe, right? more importantly, like I said, and that's something that I think our financial advisor Fred could have went over, but that security of having your money in a couple different places. So if one thing happens to one of them, if it goes bad, you have your other options. And so that's something that I'm working on, is just building up different options. But it's about saying that because I never seen the money, I'm only expecting to spend what I've now seen in my checking account, right? And I don't even look back to go touch my emergency savings, my do not touch savings, my retirement funds. I'm eventually just letting them grow and get bigger and bigger until the time is right that I do need to look at these savings accounts. Something else that works for people, and it's, if you do not see it, you will not spend it. As part of being paid monthly, I was taking my paychecks and making sure that I didn't just spend all my money in the beginning and then in the end I don't have anything. So I wanted to be able to give myself weekly budgets and saying like, hey, maybe, after paying my bills and doing all the important stuff, I want to spend about $200 a week. We'll just go with that number. Keep that going, right? And so now I'm saying like, okay, I'm putting every week $200 aside for myself to spend. Here's the beautiful thing. I'm doing it in the beginning of the month so that this way I'm pulling it out of my bank account. I don't see it on my bank account statements. I'm also pulling it out in cash so that this way I'm putting what I need for this week in my wallet, and the remainder weeks, they're aside. You don't even want to look at it. You don't want to see it. Put it somewhere, not that you'll forget because it's your money and it's important, but somewhere that you're not looking every day all the time, that it's not tempting you to touch it. So this way you are disciplining yourself to not spend over a certain amount of money within a week. And more importantly, it's making sure that you're not overspending, because the money you'll need for next week and the week after that is already put aside. You don't see it, you didn't spend it, but if the perfect time, exactly when you need it, you can go ahead and pull it out. Beautiful thing is, if you didn't spend all your money from the week before, you're now in a position to have extra money to spend the week after. And once again, what are we doing with this extra money that we're finding? We're shifting your spending. This is the last point in changing your habits. After looking for your areas of improvement and finding things of like, if I don't see my money, I won't spend it, looking for ways of how to not spend your money. Shifting your spending goes from, I've put a lot of money into here oftentimes, I've overspent in this category oftentimes, and saying, you know what, these are areas that needed to improve. These were things that weren't benefiting me. This is where my money shouldn't have been going, and I'm now going to shift it into something a lot more beneficial for myself, into something a lot more investment for myself, right? This is going into, like we keep mentioning, these retirement funds, these stocks, these bonds, these savings accounts, your future plans. This is allowing you to let your finances breathe and grow, right? Without having to feel like a lot of your money is just being blown and going to the wrong places. So be quick enough to make sure, you've put your money aside, that you're not just going silly and crazy spending it all, but then you really were able to identify what it is to do with your money and making sure that it's going there. It's the little steps that count sometimes. Like I said, if you can just find at least $20 in your spending for the month that says like, you know what, I can budget down on this and put it into something important, you're allowing yourself to watch the growth. And so lastly, as I mentioned, just going over different things, what works for me, and this is why I'm going to tell you guys, there are so many apps. We talked about some of the apps today, and we got into a lot more detail, as I keep mentioning, about the different savings accounts and where your money should go. But I'm really just trying to come to you guys today on what you can do to practice saving money, so that this way you feel as though you've built the discipline for it. And as I've mentioned, me just being a pen and pad person, a journalist kind of person, something that I like to do is every month get in my notebook, and write it down. I actually have my budget notebook here. You have your budget book, my financial planning for the year. And I go in here, and I write down throughout the month what I have to spend, all the things that I have to do, my Walmart trips, my car notes and car insurance and rent, grocery list of what it is that I'm buying, so I can go back and say like, all right, I spent about this much at a store when I have to buy these types of items and these types of things. Tithes and offering and birthday parties, hair and pedicures and eyebrows, these things are important, as we know. They're not really unexpected expenses, right? They're things that we're looking to do. We know birthdays are coming around, and we know we're gonna want our hair done and our nails done. And we know we have to pay our bills, and even talk about DreamCloud savings. You know, for myself, or just savings in general for you. I have to make sure it's written down so I don't forget to put money into it, right? So these are the types of things that allow you to say, you know, it's coming for the next time ahead, right? You know what you've been spending your money on recently if you need to look back. You know what you're going to be spending your money on in the future if you want to go ahead and plan for something else, and make sure that you have enough for that. So it's not just about having the numbers, but then you also take those numbers and you take this list and you go in your agenda and you actually get to put the dates on it. So this way it's like you've actually been able to plan which paycheck goes where, how much money goes where, for what time, you know, like making it easy and convenient for yourself so that you don't have to feel so out of place when it comes to your finances and you're working on things, right? You want to feel organized. You want to feel well put together, because we do understand that the type of stress that financial burdens can put on you. But when you plan it out, as we say, and you budget for these types of things, you find the techniques that work for yourself. You're shifting your habits for yourself. You're allowing yourself the time, the space, and, you know, the energy, most important, to think about what it is you're doing and where you can get better, and how your future can benefit from this. And so once again, thank you guys for taking the time to listen to this video. For those who did attend the event, you know, of course, I'm hoping this, like I said, just reiterating some things for you guys. But for anyone who else needs this extra help, please feel free to contact DreamClouds Enterprise. We are on Instagram at DreamCloudsENT. You can email myself, janelle.subtle@outlook.com. DreamClouds does offer financial advising and budgeting goals. And so these types of things we can go through. You know, we want to be able to make sure that we find the specific technique that works for you. Customizing some type of form, tool, resource, whatever the case may be, that helps you see, I can save money. Millions isn't that far away from me. You know, there's something that I can do here. And most importantly, to make yourself feel like you're building generational wealth. You know, you're not just doing this for yourself, but you're doing it for the family ahead and things of that essence. And so we want to work with you in making sure that it's not just your career, but your pockets are in the right place too, right? So once again, guys, shout out to everybody who came to the event tonight. Shout out to everybody watching this video. Part of, you know, getting your finances right so we can start this business. You know, this is what we're here to do, guys. Let's get everything started. 2021, big goals, big plans, and we're not stopping until we get there. So see you guys soon.